And we're live.
I watched Darkest Hour last night. That's the Winston Churchill movie. I was crying so hard. There's a scene where like they don't know what to do, right? The Germans have everyone trapped at Dunkirk. It looks like the Brits are going to lose 90% of their 300,000 men that are trapped on the beach. Churchill's just been made prime minister. He's got tons of political opposition. The king is barely even on his side. He doesn't know what to do, and all of his advisors are telling him to sue for peace, to go to Mussolini and to get Mussolini to offer terms to Hitler and to try to negotiate a peace. But he knows that like they're just going to be slaves in their own land if they do that. That the Germans will demand all of their ports. They'll demand that they completely demilitarize. They'll confiscate the British Navy. That the swastika will be flying over Buckingham Palace, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's in his motorcade, like going to Parliament to speak, and he just gets out of the car and he walks down to the underground where he's never been before, which is like their subway. And he gets on the subway car and he starts speaking to like regular people, and they're all like just gobstruck because the prime minister is on the train with him, and he starts asking them, like what would you do if the enemy showed up, on our shores? And like, we would fight them. And the little kid even, we fight them forever. We do whatever it took. You'd fight them? Yes, we'd fight them. And would you ever surrender? No, we'd never surrender. And like all the people, like all of the people, the women, the children, like the old bricklayer man, and like as he like asked them what they do you think maybe we should negotiate for peace? And like, no, never, victory at all costs. And I'm just like watching this, and I'm making it kind of silly, but like it was very serious. And Winston Churchill starts crying, and I start crying, and I'm not just crying a little, where there's like a tear rolling down my face. I'm going. I have to pause it and like pull myself
compose
together.
yourself.
Yeah. I have to pause it and like wipe the tears away and like take a sip of my soda, like take a few deep breaths and like go back to it because it's so real, it's so heartfelt, and there's so much like I don't know, like the I guess nationalism and pride in your country and like this sort of like stiff upper lip, defend your homeland at all costs sort of thing about it. And he's going to these people because none of his advisors sort of have this feeling about them, and they don't really know no one's asked the general population what their feelings are about any of this. And like they're really fueling his fire when they do this. And then he goes and he gives like 2 back-to-back speeches, one to like all of his advisors and everyone there, and then he goes to Parliament and he gives sort of the famous, we'll fight them in the streets, we'll fight them in the hills, and we'll fight them on the landing grounds and in the blah blah blah. And he does
Dunkirk. They rescued those soldiers with regular boats, right? Like
that was his idea.
Sailors and fishermen and just pleasure yachters and stuff. Yeah, pleasure craft is a better term because it at least in Dunkirk the movie, a lot of these boats were not. They were like Boston whalers, like not boats that carried a lot of people, but they'd get their 4-6 soldiers, what they could hold, or stack them, put 9 in there and leave. And it was, it speaks to the bravery because they're going to a war zone and getting out soldiers in small numbers, and they're just regular people.
Yeah, that was Churchill's idea. There was a group of 4,000 men in Calais, and he had them attack the Germans, which numbered in the hundreds of thousands, to delay the Germans so that they could get these guys off the beach. He literally sacrificed those 4,000 to save the 300,000. And Operation Dynamo, which is when they sent all the civilian vessels in, was all Churchill. That was his idea completely. And they thought he was nuts because he was like, any boat in the fucking country that's over 30 feet, go, send them in, get as many men as you can, because the projections were, like I said, that they might save 10%. Well, they got them all. They got all 300,000 back, and it won the war for them.
It's tough.
This is an interesting movie.
I sometimes think about like how I do if my area got invaded. Not well. There's not a lot of cover around my house. I feel like my house sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. It's not missile proof at all. And
I should have paid for that.
and I feel like it's somewhat attractive. Like if you were, what are the spoils of war? Like if you were to loot someplace, there's nothing good in my house. I swear, like there's nothing here worth stealing. The only worth anything in this house is the people in it.
Well, you'd be part of some kind of a resistance. They'd have taken over. Let's say like if it's like Red Dawn, right, where the Russians come in and they take over. You're not going to be able to like fight. There's no more like front. So you're sort of a resistance fighter, like the French were, or like the Belgians were, you know, where you're
like the Viet Cong now.
Maybe less like that, and more like you're passing information to the Allies wherever they are, or you're sabotaging like fuel supplies, or like planting a bomb and like a colonel's car or something like that.
You can't just live your life and go to work or whatever happens as they invade, and think that you'll stand your ground like that. That I can't stand my ground. Like, one, I have no military training. I'm an average shot. How is this going to work? Like, in what world do I win?
See, the world that you would win is that no military on Earth has enough individual people to like post on street corners and watch everyone. Like, it's not like they can be like, all right, for every one of them, there's two of us, or there's one of us, and we'll hold them down. It's like, no, like a civilian population as armed as the U.S. like is unconquerable. Like you're not going, like, unless like threat of nuclear devastation, but like a boots on the ground style invasion. You think you're gonna take the South and the Midwest with a traditional army? No, there's a gunman all over the place. If even only a small percentage of them are on board with like, oh yeah, next time I see that fucking Ruski walking down the street, I'm blowing his head off. Like there are enough of those people to do it.
The hit and
yeah.
run.
Like I've heard before, like I don't remember who said it, but it's like, who cares about things like fighter planes? A fighter plane can't stand on a street corner and direct things and make sure you're organized. They can't. Fighter planes can't do that. Tanks can't do that. Like you need boots on the ground in order to force people to live like this, and it would just be impossible with our access to firearms. I think.
I think so too. I think that I wish I could remember the movie. There's this. It's like Flame and something or another. It's about these two, I want to say Belgian resistance fighters who like would assassinate Nazi officers. Like they would figure out where they were going to be and when they were going to be there, and they would either bomb them or they just straight show up and like machine gun them down and run away. It was a really good movie. And they didn't make it in the end, but spoiler alert, but it was really good. And it was a true story. There was a lot of that in France and a lot of the Poland. A lot of
how true though. Like obviously, like they did send ships to do that, but like crying on a subway, like those kind of things.
Oh, I don't know how true that is. But it was true enough when I was watching it. Gary Oldman did a wonderful job. Gary Oldman delivers that speech literally 10 times better than Churchill did. It's so powerful when he delivers it because he's shouting and he's in Parliament surrounded and he's just like this and that. And we're going to fight them here and we're going to fight them there. And we're going to get victory at all costs. And if they should conquer us, if they should conquer some part of this island, then the British Empire will rise up all over this world, and they will fight until the end, until this land is ours again, and blah blah, just on and on and like all the politicians are just like yeah, and I'm just like, and I'm over there like yeah, let's go get those fucking Nazis. Where are they?
He said
they're in Georgia, Kyle. They're not far.
The whole British Empire will rise up. It's like, really? You think when you're like, hey, we're on our last leg, India, you got to defend us so we can keep
Canada,
controlling you.
Canada and some of the other places where they would be seats of power should the island be taken, I suppose.
This is like an interesting historical little tidbit. Like for a while after the war, Hitler was not viewed negatively in India because
we talked about that last week,
his troops like were like, I guess, kind of instrumental in like, taking some initial steps so that Gandhi could take over and then do the rest of the deal. And that was, I don't know, that's interesting to me. Like all the little things that you don't think about that are ramifications of the events that we do know about, like until like I read that, I was like, oh, I had no idea that Nazi Germany had fuck all to do with India, getting away from Britain, aside from the fact that they crushed tons of, the UK's empire and kind of forced them to mortgage it away. But regardless, all that shit, World War II, World War I, fascinating.